What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to build a weather app using Vue, Laravel, and Tailwind CSS. So you can see the finished project here. Scope of this project started pretty small, but then I kept adding new features to it. So I initially just wanted to show the current weather, which you can see here. As I started playing with the API, I noticed it also returned results for the next few days. So then I added that. And I also wanted the ability to change location. So if you go here, you can select a city and it changes the output. So the UI also went through several iterations as I added those features. So the two APIs I'm using here are the Dark Sky API for the weather, which has a free tier up to 1,000 requests per day. And for the dropdown of cities, I am using Algolia Places, which is free. So this is going to be a Laravel app because we need to secure our API key for the Dark Sky API. If you go into FAQ here, like I said, it's only 1,000 calls per day. And if you expose your API key on the client side, anyone can take that and use it themselves. And if you're paying for it, obviously that's not a good thing. And if you scroll down here, it says you should set up a proxy server, so a backend server to make API calls from the backend instead of the front end. So that's what we'll do from within Laravel. So a lot to cover here, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start from absolute scratch here so you can follow along if you're not familiar with setting everything up. So first thing I'm going to do is make a new project using the Laravel installer. So Laravel new, let's say Vue weather app, even though it is a Laravel app, but we're mostly going to be using Vue. Okay, let's go into that. And let's open this up in VS Code. Now I want to install Tailwind, so let's go ahead and install that. Let's npm install it. Okay, that's done. Let's go into our Laravel project and let's add a CSS. So let's add our CSS file. So resources, let's make a new folder here. CSS, let's make a new file, main.css, and let's paste this in. Okay, and let's install it using Laravel mix. So Laravel mix. So let's just add this .post CSS and require Tailwind in. Let's go to webpack.mix.js and let's add that here. So let's just say post CSS. Okay, cool. And let's also add our Tailwind init or Tailwind config. So Tailwind, let's do this command and that will generate a blank config for us. Cool. And I'm also going to be using browser sync. So when I save everything, it automatically reloads the browser. So let's also do .browser sync. We can just do .browser sync, and I am using Valet, so we can do Vue weather app.test. So let's put it right underneath here, say .browser sync, and it should be Vue weather app. Okay. And now let's run our watcher, and this is going to install some new stuff. Okay, so that's done. Let's run our watcher again. Okay, so that's done. Let's see if we can actually get Tailwind working. So I'm going to go to welcomeblade.php and just remove everything here and start from scratch. Let's say weather app, and I'm going to add the CSS here. And that's going to be CSS main.css. And I also want to add the JavaScript because we're going to be using Vue. So that's going to be /js/app.js, and let's defer that. And let's see if this works. So bg blue 200. Let's make it 500 so we can see it. And just put some stuff in here. And it does. Awesome. Okay, so I also want to change my editor config here. So So where's that? Right here. I just want to change the indent size of certain files to 2. So I'm just going to copy this and change these to, I want JS, Vue, and CSS to be indent size of 2. Okay. And now let's go ahead and try to put our example component in here to see if it renders, because we're going to be using Vue. So this example component. Oh, actually I didn't install Vue, so let's go ahead and do that. So let me stop this. Composer, require Laravel UI. Okay, that's done. Let's do PHP artisan UI Vue. And it's npm install, and then I'll run my watcher again after. Okay, and let's run npm run watch again. Okay, now we have this components directory with our example component in here. So I'm already adding the JavaScript here. So if I just do example component, hopefully this renders. Let's see. So yeah, doing that actually reset my webpack.mix.js file. So let's go ahead and just put everything back here. Okay, so I put everything back. Let's go ahead and run our watcher again. Okay, so it does work. So it's not working because, or it's not showing the Vue component because I forgot to do, just do div app, div with an ID of app. Let's put this in here. Cool. This should work now. And there it is. Awesome. Okay, let me quickly rename this to weather app, the component. So rename to weather app.vue. And let's get rid of all of this stuff. Let's just have a div, say example here. And let me fix the spacing on this too. Okay, and let me change this to weather app. And that should still work. Awesome. Okay, finally we can start working on the actual app. Firstly, let's fix this to be weather app. Okay. And let's add some styles here. I'm going to change this to 200. And I'm going to center it. So flex, justify center, and let's put a padding top of 16. Cool. And I have a screenshot of the app we built, so we can use this for the design. So yeah, I'm going to start with the styling. And let's try to do this quickly. Okay, looks like I didn't take a screenshot of the input above, but that's mostly going to be done by the Algolia Places API. So let's just put a placeholder for that. Let's make everything text white first. And let's put a margin bottom of 8 on it. And then this div will be for the input for selecting the city. So let's say places input. And this will have an input. And like I said, I'm going to replace this later on with the Algolia Places code we need. So let me just make this width full and say text gray 800. See if anything renders. Cool. Okay, so the next div will be our weather container. So let's name that. This is just for names. So I can match up divs. I usually do this, and sometimes I do this as well. I just say and weather container. It's easier when you're scrolling through and matching divs. And then I start adding on the Tailwind classes. Width 128 is the width I have here, which is a custom width, which I'll add in a second. And I give it a max width of large, overflow hidden, and BG gray 900, and a shadow, and a margin top of 4. Okay, let me just add some stuff in here and see how that looks. Okay, cool. So that's going to be the entire weather container. So this entire thing. And now I'm going to start working on the current weather. So let's do another div here. Let's call it current weather. And let's end it. Current weather, okay. And this is going to be, if you look at the image, it's going to be flex. So it's going to have two flex items, this one and this one. It's going to be justified between. And this item is going to be flex as well. So it's going to have two items, these two items. So flex items center, justify between. Let's give some padding, px6, py8. So let's do, that's 1 and that's 2. See if that works. Okay. Let me change. So this is shrinking because this is not defined. So I'm going to go to my Tailwind config and let's just add spacing in here. And I'm going to add 128. And that is 128 divided by 4, 32 rems. 32 rems. Okay, cool. So like I said, this one is going to be flex as well. So it's going to be these two items. So I'll do class equals flex and item center. So the first flex item is going to have this, and the second one is going to have this. So let's do that. So the first one, actually it's going to be a container because it's going to have two items. It's going to have this and it's going to have the feels like. So this one, so this first one's going to be text, oops. It's going to be really big, so text 6XL, font semi-bold, and it's say 8 degrees. I'm going to hard code it for now. I'm going to paste in the degree sign, cool. And the next one is just going to be feels like, say 2 degrees Celsius. Okay. Okay, looking good. And the next item will be this. So the temperature or the description of the weather and the location. So that would be this next div. So next flex item. So let's give this some margin on the left and right. So MX5 is what I have here. And then the first item will be, let's make it semi-bold, font semi-bold. And then let's add the description of the temp or the weather. And then this will just be the location. This won't be semi-bold. Say Toronto, Canada. Cool. And I think I forgot to round the corners here. So rounded LG. Cool. And 2 is where the icon will go. And we'll be making use of an icon set called Skycons, which is an animated icon set, which you saw earlier. Okay, so that is the current weather section. So this. Now I just want to add this section here, which is, I called it future weather. Let's do that. Let's do .future weather. Let's end that as well. And future weather, okay. So this is just going to have a bunch of entries for the days of the week. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's go ahead and do that. Actually, let's set some stuff here first. So small text. The background is slightly lighter. And let's also add a padding px6, py8, and say overflow hidden as well. Okay. Cool. So let's go ahead and add one entry and then we'll duplicate that. So it's going to be flex items center. And what I did was I set a width for each one of these entries. So I made this 1/6, 2/6, 4/6, and 1/6. So let's go ahead and do that. So within here, so this is width 1/6. Next one is 4/6, and then 1/6. Or you can change this to 2/3 as well if you like math and want to reduce it. So this is where the day of the week goes. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I have this as larger text. And I also have it as a slightly darker gray or darker white, so off-white. Sorry, not 800, 200. And say Monday. And for this is where the description goes. So this, and this has two items. It has the icon and it has the description of the weather. So I gave this some padding. It's going to be flex and items center. And the first item is the icon. And the second item is the description. So this one has a margin left of 3. Cloudy with a chance of showers. Cool. And this last section here just has the temperatures. And as you see here, I have a high and a low here. So let's go ahead and do that. So text right. And we have two items in here. So div, just two divs. So high is like 5 degrees and the low is -2 degrees. Okay, looking good. So we just have to duplicate this. So this is one item. Let's do this a few times. 2, 3. Let's just make 3 because I'm going to loop over this later using Vue. And these ones are going to have a margin top of 8. Okay, looking good. So that'll be the basis of our styles. We'll tweak it along the way. But now let's get started on the actual API interaction. Okay, so go ahead and make an account on Dark Sky and you'll get an API key which you can use. And here is a sample API call. So as you can see, it has the API key in the URL. So if you just go to it, then you'll see all the information here. So with that knowledge, let's go ahead and try to make use of this. So I am going to do everything in the mounted callback. Actually, I'm going to call a method here called fetch data because we actually have to do this again once we change the location later. So it's good to have it in a method. And let's make a new methods key here. And let's make this new one called fetch data. Okay. So since it's just a simple GET request, I'm going to just use the fetch API. So fetch, and I'm going to use template strings here. I'm going to paste that in. And just grab the response .json. And then data. Let's just console log, see if we get anything. Okay. And I'm going to save, go back to my weather app, and open DevTools. And let me just make this a bit bigger. And as you can see, we have a CORS issue, which makes sense because we don't want other domains to be using our API key, so they enable CORS. But it's actually pretty easy to bypass this. I think there's a service called CORS Anywhere. Yeah, so this one. So just add this in front of the API, and then that will bypass it. So now we should get a response. And we do. There it is. Cool. So as you can see, we have all this information that was returned to from the API. So wherever the API here. So we obviously don't want to expose our API key, like I said earlier. So we want to make our own proxy instead of using this one. And since we're within the context of a Laravel app, we can easily do that. So I am going to make use of ZTTP, which is a wrapper around Guzzle to make HTTP requests. So let's go ahead and pull this in. And let me just open it up in a new tab here. And I'm going to compose or require that. Okay, that's done. And now let's go into our routes API file. And let's make a new route here. So I'm just going to do it within the routes file. And I'm going to call it weather. And let's just do response equals ZTTP. Let's make a GET request. So that's just going to be the endpoint. So let me just paste that in. Okay, and we'll extract the API key into an environment file in a second. And let's make sure I spell response correctly. And then it's return response JSON. Okay, and now, since we're calling it from our backend now, our API key is safe. And now we can just call our API from here. So this will now be /API, I believe I called it weather, yeah, /weather. And let's see if this still works. So back to our app. We have an error here. And I just forgot this. Let's try again. Let's refresh. And if I scroll up, we have an internal server error. That's probably because I forgot to import this. So I just imported that. Okay, let's try again. Let's refresh. And there we have the same information, but now it's in our backend, so our API key is protected. So let's make this a bit more dynamic. And let's, like I said, extract the key to the environment variable. So I'm going to do API key equals config services.darksky.key. Okay. And I'm going to change this to double quotes so I can just put the variable in there. So that would be this. So that's just going to be API key. I should have copied that first. Copy. Okay. And let's go to config services, and I named it services. I spelled it wrong. Darksky.key. So config services. Let's just duplicate this and say darksky key. And we'll put that in an environment file, say darksky key. Like that. Save that. Let's go to our environment file. And let's add that down here. Darksky key equals this. Okay. And just to double check that that works, I'm going to change this key. I'm going to refresh this. That should fail. Okay. I'm going to change it back. I'm going to refresh this. And it works. Awesome. So let me just remove these. Oops. I meant to close this and close this. And let's make this a bit more dynamic. So we also want to pass in the latitude and longitude and make that dynamic as well. So let's do lat, and so I'm just going to use the request global and grab it from the query string. And let's make one called long request lng. And we want to replace these. So this is the latitude. And this is the longitude. Cool. Oh, and one more thing I want to add to the query string here is just units equals CA. This just makes it so it's Celsius. And initially I wanted to have a feature that supports both Fahrenheit and Celsius, but I just stuck to just using Celsius. So you can make this dynamic as well if you want. but for this case, I'm just going to make it Celsius. So let's double check if this still works. Okay, yeah, that's not going to work anymore because we are not passing in the latitude and longitude. So we can do that in our front end. So let's go ahead and make some state here. So I'm going to do data, return, object, and I'm going to have an object here called location. And this is going to be an object and it's going to hold the location name. So by default, I want it to be Toronto, Canada. And then latitude and longitude will be here too. So this is the latitude for Toronto, 6532. And longitude, I don't need these as strings. Longitude will be negative 79,38323. Okay. And now I want to pass in the latitude and longitude here. So we are going to do a query string for lat. And since I'm using template strings here, I can just do this. So this would be this dot location dot lat. And let's also pass in the longitude. And long lng equals this dot location dot lng. Okay, cool. Now let's see if this works since we're passing it in now. And we are now getting the information for this latitude and longitude, which is Toronto. Awesome. So one more note about the backend. This is somewhat protected now, as like I said, it is in our environment file, and from the client, no one can see this. But someone can still grab this endpoint and use it on their own. And that won't work initially because CORS is in effect. But as you saw earlier, CORS is easy to bypass. So one more thing you might want to do, which I won't do here, but I'll explain it, is to maybe have a middleware that whitelists certain IP that can access this endpoint. So the only IP you want is the IP that this app lives on. So if someone tries to use this endpoint, they won't be able to because their IP is not whitelisted. So yeah, just an extra layer of security if you were actually to make a weather app and put this to production. Okay, back to our front end. I'm going to add more state here. So I'm going to add state for the current temperature. So let's say current temperature. And this is going to be an object as well. And I am going to add a few things here. So actual temperature. Let's make it empty by default. Feels like temperature. Again, empty by default. Summary is going to be the summary of the weather in text format. Empty by default. And we want an icon as well, which is going to be empty by default. So now we can populate this data and put it in our template after we resolve the promise. So let's do this .current temperature .actual, and this is going to be data. And if you look at the data coming back, there is a currently field, and temperature is what we want. So again, just look at this. So we have data currently, and we should have something here called temperature, and there it is. And since I put that CA query string in the backend, then it's returning it in Celsius. And I'm going to round that as well because I just want one value here. And let's do the same for feels, and that is going to be apparent temperature. Okay, and let's do one for this current temperature summary is data.currently.summary. And again, you can destructure this if you want. This is redundant, but you can destructure that to make your code cleaner, but I'm just going to leave it here. This current temperature icon equals data.currently.icon. And that's it for now. And let's see if we can get the temperature the fields and the summary in our template. So this would be current temperature dot actual. Okay, let's see if that works. And it does, cool. And this would be current temperature dot fields. Cool. And this would be current temperature dot summary. Awesome. And let's put this to our location. So I believe I named it location.name. So that's just hard coded to Toronto right now. So we shouldn't see a change. Cool. And let's quickly work on the icon. So if you look at the FAQ for Dark Sky, you'll see that they support an icon set called Skycons. And it makes use of Canvas and it is animated. So let me just install it. So I'm just going to grab it from GitHub and just put it in my welcome blade. So I'm just going to put it above our app.js. And yeah, it's probably better to put this locally, but like I said, I'll just grab it from GitHub. And we need to put a canvas element where we want the icon to be. So I'm going to paste in a canvas element right here. And I gave it a ref of icon current and an ID of icon current and a width of 96 and a height of 96. So let's go ahead and initialize it and let's make it white. So I'm just going to do this and let's put this in our fetch data. So right here. And let me just change this to single quotes. And let's change this to white. Okay. And once this resolves, so after this, then we can do this. So skycons.add. Let's just hard code this in. And I named it icon current. And you can do it like this with an enum, or you can just put a string. So partly cloudy day. So this is in kebab case with dashes. So we are going to have to convert our icon coming back from the API to kebab case. So let's just see if this renders. So back to our app. And there it is right there. Cool. So like I said, we want to convert this to kebab case because this comes back as partly cloudy day with spaces like this. But we want to convert it to kebab case. So I'm going to make a method. So this dot to kebab case, and we'll pass that in. And let's go ahead and make that underneath. So right here, to kebab case. And let me just move this up. Say string to convert. And we are going to return. So you can use regular expressions here, but I'm going to use split and join, which I think is a bit simpler than using regex. So I'm going to split it on space. This will change it to an array. And then I'm going to join it using a dash. And that will convert it to kebab case. So now, if I did this correctly, let's change this to this. So this dot current temperature, the icon. Okay. And if you want it to be animated, then skycons.play. Cool. And if you look closely, this is actually animated. Awesome. Okay, now let's work on getting the future weather to work. So if you look at the API, you'll see a field here called, what's it called? Daily. And if you look at the data here, I know it's a bit small, but you can see that there's 8 items. So it returns future data, future weather for the next 8 days. So let's go ahead and get this daily.data information into our application here. So I am going to make a new piece of state underneath here, and we'll call it daily. I'll put it here actually, so daily. And that's going to be an empty array to start. And once our API resolves, after here, let's say this.daily, actually let's put it here. This.daily is data.daily.data. So yeah, like I said, daily.data.daily, and there's another data field. So this will be an array of objects, and each object will have the information for that day. So based on our API, or based on our design, we're interested in the day, which we can grab from this Unix timestamp here. We're interested in the icon, which we can get from the icon, like we just did. We're interested in the summary, which is here as well, right here. And then we want the high and the low, which is right here. Temperature low and temperature high. So let's go ahead and do that. So back to our template here, right here. So future weather, and this is one item, and we just added these, so it looks good in our UI, but we don't need this anymore since we're going to loop over the data. So let me just remove that, and there should only be one here now. Cool. And let's go ahead and loop over it. So let's loop over this one. So v4 equals, and I want the day and the index as well. So let's grab that. And we're looping over daily, which we grabbed from the API. And we need a key. Let's just make it the time, or you can make it the index too. And I have to use that index or it's going to be an error. So let me just rearrange this for a sec. So I'm going to use that index to give it a margin top of 8 if the index is greater than 0. So let's just do this. Let's give it an object. And I want empty8 if the index is greater than 0. Cool. And for this, it's day of the week. And we'll convert this to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. in a second. But for now, we'll just put day.time. And we will do stuff with the icon as well in a second. Let's change this to day.summary. And let's change the high and the low. So this will be math.round, day.temperature high. Okay. And let's just duplicate that and say temperature low. Okay, did I do this correctly? I did. Let's add the degree Celsius back. So I'm just going to put that here. Cool. And like I said, I want to convert this Unix timestamp to a day of the week. So I'm going to make a method called toDayOfWeek. And we're going to pass in the Unix timestamp. And then we're going to make that method down here. So toDayOfWeek. And it's taking the timestamp. So I see a lot of developers reach for libraries like Moment or DateFNS, which are great libraries if you're working heavily with dates. But I see them reaching for it for simple stuff like this. So all we want is the day of the week. So we can change it to a date. object, so timestamp. And I'm not going to pretend like I wrote this code. I Googled it and I found a Stack Overflow answer. And here is where we want the array of days. So in our case, or in my case, I want to output it with the capital day of the week and in short form. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, etc. So I'm going to paste that in. And now we just want to return days and new date dot get day, because get day will return an integer of what day of the week it is, and we are grabbing that from here. So now let's see if we did that right. There we go. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I only want 5 days here. So let's change our v4 to take that into account. So I just want to do v if equals index is less than 5. So that should only return the next 5 days. Cool. Why is this complaining? So yeah, it's saying you shouldn't use v4 with vif. You should make this a computer property. So make daily a computer property and just iterate over that. But it does work, so I'm just going to leave it for now. Maybe in the final code I'll change it. Okay, now let's take care of the icon here. So just like we did earlier, we need a canvas element here. So I'm going to make a canvas element. And we need to reference this. So I'm going to give it an ID. And let's say icon and then the index. Index plus 1. Index plus 1. So for day 1, it'll be icon 1, icon 2, icon 3, icon 4, icon 5. And we're also going to need a reference to the icon within the loop. So for example, for the first one, it's going to be light rain. And second one is going to be mostly cloudy. And we want that in the icon format. So I'm going to make a new custom attribute here called data icon. And just like before, we're going to do to kebab case day.icon. So now it's stored on this element. And let's also give it a width of 24 and a height of 24. Height 24. Cool. And I forgot to close this. Cool. Okay, let me save that. And just like we did earlier here, where is it? In our, here, where we added the icon, we have to do the same for those icons for these things. So let me just show you what I'm trying to do here. So if I do document.getElement by ID icon 1, you'll see that this is going to be null because at this point it's not in the DOM yet. So if you look for it, sorry, I meant to console log that. So I'm going to console log that, save that. And like I said, you'll see it's null here. But if we wrap this in a next tick, it will run once the DOM element is available. So let me show you what I mean. So this dot $next tick, and we want to wrap this in a callback. Okay. And if we put this in here, now this should be available to us. So I'm going to save that. And there you see the canvas element available to us. So now we can do what we did here and just do that for each of the icons. So in our case, we have 5 for 5 days. So icon 1, And let me just grab what I had here. This. So that will go here. And we have to do the same for each one of them. So 2, 3, 4, 5. And we can play it as well. Skycons.play. So yeah, let me just change these. So yeah, hopefully that works, and hopefully you understand what I did there. It's kind of tricky to explain next tick. Sorry, what I meant to do here was grab the icon name from the custom attribute I made. So get attribute, and it's going to be data icon. Like this. So yeah, let's save that and see if this works. And there we go, it did work. So now you see the icons for each of the days here, corresponding to that day. Awesome. Okay, now let's work on getting the Places API to work. So here is an example. So as you type, it suggests cities for you. So let's see if we can get this working. So let's work in a separate project, and let's check out the example here. And here is the first example. You can search, so basically just what I had there. And if you select it, it adds it here. So this is all the code for it, so pretty minimal. So I have a project set up here with nothing. So let's go ahead and add this. And let's add this. I'm going to copy all this and paste it in here. And we have to add our app ID and our API key. So in this case, for Algolia, for this service specifically, it's okay to expose your app ID and your API key on the client side, although there are some extra security features that you can use if you need them. But in general, it's okay to expose these to the client. So if you just go to Algolia, or if you just go back here and go to Get Started, if you have an account already, you can just log in. Or not Get Started. Get Started is the documentation. Sign up for free. And then I already have this, so I'm not going to say no. So this is my app here. This is the API key, so I'm going to copy this. Let's put that into our app. And the app ID is this. So I copy this and put that in here. So now, if I open this up in the browser, let's go to playgroundplaces.test. See if this works. There's the input, and it works. Awesome. So as you can see, this is also suggesting places, which I don't want. I only want cities. So if I go back to the example here, we can go to city search. And I think the only thing we have to add is this .configure and give it type city, and that should do it. So that would be after places right here. So that should do it. So now it should only suggest cities. So I'm going to refresh this. Toronto, yeah, so now it's only cities. Awesome. So now I'm going to integrate this into our Vue app. So I'm not going to change it much to be Vue-like. I'm just going to kind of paste what I have in here. But you can take some extra steps to make it more Vue-like. So I am going to grab these two and put it in our input. So this is our app here. So I guess I'll just work like this for the rest of the video. Full screen. So I'm going to add this to our input. So what was that right here? Okay. And let's go ahead and add this script. Let's put that in our welcome blade. And I'll put it right here. Let's defer this as well. Okay. And now we have to add all of this code. Actually, before I do that, let me show you how to get the longitude and latitude from the one that we select. So we just have to console log e.suggestion, and you will see that everything is within here. So if I open this up and refresh, say Toronto, and there it is. So you see everything we need, including the lat long. So let's go ahead and add this first. So this is initializing the places library. So we'll put this in our mounted callback, our mounted hook. So where's our mounted hook? Right here. So let's do it before we fetch data. And again, we can change this to const, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. And what's next? So this grabs our address value. So that's, where's my example here? This. Okay. So I guess we don't really need that, but we do need these two, or this one is the more important one. So this is what happens after you select a city. And this is what happens when you clear it. I guess we'll add this as well. So let's just put everything in mounted. Again, not the cleanest solution, but you can spend some time to make this more Vue-like. So I'm going to add this. So this is grabbing the address value. And this is the callback that gets called once we select a city. So this is where we need to do our work. Actually, I'm going to put this fetch data on top of it. So fetch data first and then initialize it. Okay. And here is where we need to update our state. So let's go ahead and do that. So this .location.name is, and I just want the name of the city and the name of the country. So let's do e.suggestion.name and then comma and then e.suggestion.country. Okay. And let's change the latitude and longitude. So this .location.lat equals e.suggestion.lat long.lat. And this will be the same for long. And this will be LNG. Cool. So this is going to change our state. So let's just verify that that's happening. But that's not going to make another fetch request to the server, which is what we need to do. So let me just verify that the lat and long is changing. So here is the lat and long. So this is Toronto. Let's just go somewhere far. Okay, as you can see, the styling is a bit off. But let's just check if this works. I'm going to select Manila. And if I refresh, it does not change. So what's the issue here? Why is it not changing? It should change. Okay, so cannot set property name of undefined. Okay, so the problem here is the context of this is changing. So we're going to change this to an arrow function. And this should still be the view object. So I can change this. And now let's try that again. So let's open Vue DevTools. Let's check out our lat and long. So that's Toronto. Let's change it to somewhere far. So the name changed, but the lat and long did not change. Why not? So yeah, sorry, this should be just a lowercase l. So let's change that. Let's try it again. Say, let's go open DevTools first. Manila. Okay. And now let's see if that changed. So it did. Awesome. So as you see, this changed because we're not getting this from the API. Sorry, I mean we're not getting this from the weather API. But the weather details did not change because we have to call the API again once this data changes. So once any of the location data changes, we want to fetch the data again. So what we want to do here is make a watcher. So I'm going to put it right above the data, I guess. and say watch, we want to watch. So if location, or if the latitude and longitude were separate fields and not within an object, we can just do, say, latitude, and then just do this dot fetch data. But since it's an object, we have to do something else. It's the same thing, basically. We just have to say location as an object instead of a method. And we want it to have a handler. And we can grab the old value and the new value if we want. We don't have to. And what we want to do is this dot fetch data. But we also want to say watch the properties. So we have to say deep true. So if any of the location fields change, then this handler will be run. So that should do it. Save. If I change this, so this is Toronto by default. If I change this to something else, and we'll fix the styling in a second. There we go. There is the temperature in Manila. Let's try something in the West Coast, Los Angeles. And there we go. It re-renders everything and the data changes. Awesome. So for the styling, I believe I just Googled Algolia Places Tailwind. And I came across a thread that showed how to fix it. Sorry, I think it was the other one. So this one. So I just added these CSS rules to my CSS file and it fixed it. So let's go into here. Sorry. Main.css. So this right here. And let's just add these. So we have that. And we have these two. And that should fix it. Sorry. I keep selecting Sublime, but I'm using VS Code here. Cool. Let's just fix that. Save that. And let's see if this works. Okay, so does this work? And it does. Awesome. So now our style for our Algolia Places input is working. Does this close work? It does. Selected none. Say Montreal. There's a temperature for Montreal. And it's changed back to Toronto. Awesome. So there you have it, guys. We managed to use the Dark Sky API along with Algolia's Places API to build out this weather app using Tailwind CSS, Vue, and Laravel. Definitely a long one, but I hope you learned something new. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.